Drive towards it. Hold on. When they come at me.
People either think that immigration is a crisis or climate is a crisis or, inflation is a crisis, police violence is a crisis, crime in the streets is a crisis, everything's a crisis.
Really want to be that person that reaches the other side, because Democrats, they're horrible at their jobs, right? They do a lot of shitty things, although I'll vote for them all the time. But it's also hard in this space to criticize them.
That's a good, can we clip that quote? They're horrible at their jobs.
Please don't clip that. Please, no, please.
Exactly 10 years ago this month, a 5.7 earthquake hit in nearly the same area right around Lake Almanor. And there were no serious injuries, but some businesses were damaged. A chimney crumbled and one home was shaken right off its foundation.
You bet. We spoke to Dr. Lucy Jones, a renowned seismologist, tonight. She said today's earthquake is the largest to hit California since the 2019 Ridge Crest earthquake.
Reports of at least 10 tornadoes in Oklahoma. Severe storms hammered the middle part of the country from Colorado to Arkansas, but the area around Oklahoma City had the worst damage by far.
Jen Crawford finds necessity is truly the mother of invention.
That is crazy.
Look at the snow stuck up on the bottom of it.
It's hard to beat the library.
Right?
Especially when you have to keep your eye on
that
one.
I've never seen.
The 16 reported tornadoes touching down across 5 states.
We're in it! We're in the tornado! Hold on, guys. Hold on! Here's popping back there!
Another CATS train derails in Charlotte. It is the 4th time in 1 year.
Train derailment in Long Island City.
Train derailment in Braemar, Missouri, where evacuations are now underway. That's about an hour and 15 minutes northeast of Kansas City.
Now Norfolk Southern CEO says it will pay those homeowners for declines in their property values. The company telling the U.S. Senate it will establish a fund for homes within a 5-mile radius of the derailment. And this morning, Norfolk Southern is still struggling with derailments. Just hours ago, another one, this time in Newcastle, Pennsylvania. Thankfully, there were no injuries, and we're told only candle wax and salt were spilled, no hazardous materials.
A former U.S. Marine who killed a homeless man by putting him in a chokehold on the New York City subway was arraigned on a manslaughter charge in Manhattan criminal court on Friday after surrendering to police.
Dallas tonight is still trying to recover from a ransomware attack that infected city computer systems. The city's chief IT expert telling members of the city council today that the Dallas Police Department website and the computer-aided dispatch system have been restored. They are going department by department scouring for that virus. The city would not say how long this will take or reveal who attacked them or why.
It is done by a group called Royal. The federal government issued a warning about them months ago, claiming Royal has targeted many critical infrastructure sectors.
He was 39. It completely took us all by shock. And we have 3 little boys, 10, 9, and 6. And, my kids and I kind of wrote this book on the different emotions and grieving processes that we've experienced last year. Dad is still here. It's just in a different way.
A 33-year-old mother who seemed like a grieving widow turned author is now an accused murderer. While promoting her children's book just last month on News Nation affiliate KTVX in Utah, Corey Richens talked about her husband's death and how she created a picture book to help her sons and all children to cope with tragedy. 39-year-old Eric Richens died suddenly in March of last year at the family home just outside of Park City after the stunning arrest of Corey Richens yesterday for his murder. Court documents revealed she allegedly poisoned her husband with a lethal dose of fentanyl mixed into a drink that she had served him. A medical examiner ruled it was 5 times the lethal amount.
A man who caught 2 Navy ships nearly colliding in the San Diego Bay has been ordered to take the camera down. The Navy says the camera's live stream shows military activity in the area, but the camera owner says he has a right to film whatever he wants in a public place.
Elon Musk has named his future Twitter CEO replacement on Friday. He's passing the torch to former NBC Universal executive Linda Yaccarino. She resigned as the company's advertising chief and will take over at Twitter in just 6 weeks.
The victims were lined up along the road outside the Oznem homeless shelter when the SUV struck them around 8:30 a.m. Witnesses say the driver then tried to flee but was detained by others at the scene.
There's reports that are going out that he was driving recklessly. There's others saying that he was intoxicated, and there's others saying that he was intentional.
7 people died at the scene, 1 died at a nearby hospital, and several others remain in critical condition. The last week of April, Border Patrol says 15,000 crossed into Brownsville compared with 1,700 in the first 2 weeks of April.
I don't know what's wrong with you young people. You think you just fell out of a coconut tree? You exist in the context of all in which you live and what came before you.
This morning, California's Reparations Task Force, the first of its kind in the nation, has voted to send recommendations for reparations to state lawmakers, saying it hopes to right the wrongs of slavery as well as land, housing, and health discrimination.
My great-grandfather was a sharecropper who had 17 children and worked from sunup to sundown and died with absolutely nothing.
The task force is recommending payments of up to $1.2 million for any African American over 70 that can trace their ancestry to enslaved people, compensating them for what it describes as harm to their health, mass incarceration, over-policing, and housing discrimination.
We interrupt our program at the request of the White House. This is the emergency broadcast system. All normal broadcasting has been discontinued during this emergency.
Every country faces challenges to the rule of law, including my own. And the choices each of our countries make matter immensely, not only for our own country, but for our neighbors. In the 21st century, the countries that thrive will be the ones where citizens know their voices will be heard because the institutions are transparent. Their efforts will be rewarded because there is a fairness in the court system, where businesses can compete without having to worry about paying bribes, where judges hand down verdicts free from political influence. The European Commission recently found that corruption cost the European Union as a whole $160 billion or 120 billion euros every single year. That's 1% of the total GDP of the entire European Union. Corruption is a cancer that eats away at a citizen's faith in democracy, diminishes the instinct for innovation and creativity. It wastes the talent of entire generations, scares away investments and jobs, and most importantly, it denies the people their dignity. It saps the collective strength and resolve of a nation.
Hunter Biden's representatives claimed the money was, quote, good faith seed funds, but could not explain why those funds had to go through an intermediary in what appears to be an attempt to hide the transfers from the Chinese. They also couldn't explain why the Bidens received over $1 million in 16 different wire transfers over a period of 3 months to at least 5 different banks. I trust the whistleblower. A subpoena from this committee is a powerful tool that I do not take lightly. The level of detail provided to Senator Grassley led me to conclude a subpoena was warranted, and I stand by that assessment. The committee is concerned by the complicated, suspicious network of over 20 companies we have identified the Bidens and their associates used to enrich themselves. Most of these companies were limited liability companies formed during Joe Biden's vice presidency. The bank records show the Biden family, their associates, and their companies received over $10 million from foreign nationals and their companies. Some of that money came from a Chinese company and went to Hunter Biden's company. Other transfers occurred with the help of Rob Walker, who then sent it on to different Biden family members. This is not how lawful businesses operate. Chinese nationals affiliated with the Bidens created limited liability companies in the United States, and then in a short period of time transferred their interest to a Chinese company that sent money to the Bidens. This is not normal. Hunter Biden and his associates courted business in countries that correlated directly with Joe Biden's work as vice president. This is also not normal. It is not ethical.
Walker's limited liability company, Robinson Walker LLC, paid Hunter, James, Hallie, and others in the Biden network more than $2 million after foreign money hit his account. 1/3 to the Bidens. That was the pattern. For example, on March 1st, 2017, only 2 months after Joe Biden left office, Robinson Walker received a $3 million wire from State Energy HK Limited, a Chinese entity. The next day, 1/3 of that money, $1,065,000, went to the bank account in Abu Dhabi of the company EEIG, which was controlled by James Gilliatt, another Biden associate. Over the next 3 months, Robinson Walker LLC sent 16 incremental payments to over 5 different Biden accounts totaling $1,065,692. This included payments to James Biden, who received 5 wires and over $50,000, who did no discernible work to earn that money. 1/3 to Gilliard, 1/3 to the Bidens. He met with Hunter Biden in February 2017 and gave him a diamond reportedly worth tens of thousands of dollars as a gift. In August of 2017, Yi, through Gongwandong, opened up a business with Hunter and James Biden called Hudson West 3, based here in Washington, D.C. And Hunter wanted to get Joe Biden's keys to the office, and they could all share office space together, according to an email verified by the Washington Post. But things didn't go as planned because the Chinese detained Yi in March of 2018 for fraud.
30th, 2017, Shanghai Huaxin sent $10 million from China to CEFC Infrastructure. Then in August 4th, 2017, CEFC Infrastructure wired $100,000 directly to Hunter Biden's own corporation, Owasco PC. Hunter's Owasco also received $500,000 from another entity affiliated with Yi, State Energy HK Limited. State Energy HK appears to be part of Yi's personal slush fund to potentially commit bribery and launder money. The Chinese Communist Party affiliated entities may have bought influence with the Bidens that they couldn't get otherwise, and obviously for good reason. These alleged layering schemes are repetitive. They knew what they were doing, they knew how to do it, and they did it multiple times all over the world. If it looks complicated and sounds complicated, it was intentionally made to be complicated so you could not follow the money. What we're trying to do today is show you how to follow the money.
While Joe Biden was vice president of the United States, 16 companies created while he was vice president. Now the list is 20, and as we continue our investigation, that list is growing. And like I said before, the question is to serve what purpose? And the purpose of all these companies being created is to conceal money that the Biden family has been gaining because Joe Biden has been sitting at the upper echelon of our politics for almost 5 decades. That is the entire purpose here. Here's an example of what I mean. You have Rosemont Seneca Partners, Rosemont Seneca Advisors, Rosemont Seneca Technology Partners, RSP Holdings, RSTP2 Alpha, RSTP2 Bravo, Rosemont Seneca Thornton, Rosemont Seneca Bohai. I want to make sure I pronounce it right. Bohai, B-O-H-A-I. And the list goes on and on.
Joe Biden said during the campaign that the letter from 51 former Intel officials, when he used it in the debate, he portrayed it as if it was organic. And we now know through another investigation that we're all working on, that in fact it was coordinated. That letter from 51 former Intel officials was coordinated with the Biden campaign. So much so, the Biden campaign told Mike Morrell, here's the journalist we want you to have the story to, the letter to first.
You look at Watergate and things like that. The congressional committees didn't find out about the Watergate. The press found out about it. And instead of the press asking Joe Biden, when we disclosed a month ago that through the Robinson Walker account, 3 or 4 Biden family members received $1.3 million. Somebody yelled out, "What do you think about your family receiving money from China?" And he said, "That's not true." And nobody pressed him again. So I don't think the media is playing the same role that it used to play with respect to investigative reporting.
Corruption is just another form of tyranny. And corruption can represent a clear and present danger, not only to a nation's economy, but to its very national security. There are nations, and we've seen it recently, that exploit corruption to exercise malign influence and undermine the very sovereignty and independence of their neighbors. In this way, corruption has become an instrument of foreign policy for some nations. When politicians can be bought, when courts can be manipulated, when the media becomes a tool of propaganda, there you will find a society that is susceptible to manipulation from the outside. There you'll find a society that loses control of its own destiny. Not only its political security, but its physical security and military readiness is also compromised.
Keep tuned to the station for further emergency information.
People understand what happened. That was a rigged election, and it's a shame that we had to go through it. It's very bad for our country. All over the world, they looked at it, and they saw exactly what everyone else saw. You look, even if you just look recently with the 51 intelligence agents, that made a 16-point difference. If you look at the FBI, if you look at the FBI and Twitter, they call it Twitter files, made a big difference. If you look at
Mr. President, back to what you just said there, though, it was not a rigged election. It was not a stolen election. You and your supporters lost more than 60 court cases on the election. It's been nearly 2.5 years. Can you publicly acknowledge that you did lose the 2020 election?
Let me just go on. If you look at True the Vote, they found millions of votes on camera, on government cameras, where they were stuffing ballot boxes.
The influence of the Hunter laptop case not being reported on as kind of a soft influence, and a kind of influence I think a lot of voters might agree had an effect on the election, the same way that so many Democrats talk about Hillary's email coverage and Jim Comey, et cetera, having such an effect on the outcome in 2016.
100%. Trump there was bringing up legitimate criticisms. I mean, what the Twitter files revealed, the massive amount of coordination, cooperation, pressure from the federal government to censor content. He referenced the 50 intelligence officials. I've referenced it a couple times talking about it. He's absolutely right. The intelligence officials who said the Hunter Biden laptop story was Russian disinformation, and that was cited by the media and by Politico, by Biden himself to justify ignoring the story. He is right to complain about all those things. Those were unfair hits on him, things that went against him. They do not contribute to the election being rigged in the sense of voting machines or that kind of stuff. When you say rigged, what I think most people mean by that, it was literally violating the law.
Yeah. That he keeps talking about 2020 and not 2024. I'll ask you first. This is Jonathan Leslie. He's 40, Republican, voted for Trump twice. How do you feel about those lies?
So I feel like part of it's also the media narrative, as you guys asked him the first question at the town hall about the 2020 election, rather than current stuff.
So don't you think you could say it's time for him to start talking about 2024 and not lies that are true?
Couldn't the media ask him a question about 2024?
Well, there were questions, but you're right, that was the first thing, but that's something that was on our mind. That's why I was asked first. What I want to ask you first of all is, do you think, show of hands, anybody think Donald Trump looks better after this town hall? Any of you think he looks worse? Any of you think the same thing about him as you did when he walked in?
You know, Carroll was able to bring this suit under the Adult Survivors Act, that state law that opened a year-long window in which victims could file complaints whose statute of limitations had expired. A lot of people were wondering, well, how can this come forward 3 decades later? I think it's important to point out, and I don't know if you need to check in on what that screaming is behind you, Aaron, but a lot happening there outside the courthouse. Could you tell us more about this Adult Survivors Act that Governor Hochul brought back into the picture, which really opened up the door for E. Jean Carroll to do this and bring about another discussion?
The Adult Survivors Act was signed into law and enacted in 2022, and it enabled adult victims of sexual assault to sue the people they said did it, even after the criminal statute of limitations expired. So it allowed for lawsuits that otherwise would be time barred. And this is a year-long window that opened on Thanksgiving, the very day, this past Thanksgiving, when E. Jean Carroll filed her defamation and battery claim.
A jury in New York has found that Trump sexually abused and defamed E. Jean Carroll and awarded her $5 million in damages. This was a civil case there that went on for the past 2 weeks. It was a quick verdict. They just started deliberating this morning. The jury also finding that Trump did not rape Carroll, but that he is liable for battery and for defamation.
New York Representative George Santos has been arrested on 13 counts of fraud, including 7 counts of wire fraud, 3 counts of money laundering, 1 count of theft of public funds, and 2 counts of making materially false statements to the House of Representatives, federal prosecutors report.
Cooler weather on Monday brought some relief to firefighters battling widespread wildfires in Western Canada, but officials warned it could be months before they're brought under control. A state of emergency was declared in Alberta on Saturday, with more than 700 firefighters deployed. There are nearly 100 active wildfires burning in Alberta, and around a third of them are considered out of control. More than 29,000 people have been evacuated from their homes so far. Nearly 300 patients in long-term care facilities have also been moved to safety. The unprecedented wildfire season has shut in at least 3% of Canada's energy production. The country is the world's 4th largest crude producer, and about 80% of its oil comes from Alberta. The fires have primarily affected light oil and natural gas producers who shut in operations as a precaution.
Floods ripped through riverside villages in South Kivu province last week, razing houses, destroying crops, and killing more than 400 people. With rain still battering the region, health authorities are concerned the population is at risk of waterborne diseases. Local officials on Tuesday said that around 5,000 people may still be missing.
Potentially, oxygen tanks were the cause of this explosion. One witness said that they saw a cylinder fly out of the vehicle and then the vehicle set on fire. We also do believe that at least one person has been injured at the moment, but we are still waiting for reports from Milan police to see exactly what is occurring. At this moment in time, the vehicle is still on fire and there are other vehicles that are also on fire in the area.
Well, the continuous rolling power cuts in South Africa is taking a huge toll on the economy. The country's currency has hit a new 3-year low at 18.87 against the US dollar on fears of worsening power cuts. Struggling state power utility ESCOM is currently implementing scheduled blackouts lasting more than 12 hours a day for many households and businesses, with expectations for longer outages deeper into the Southern Hemisphere winter. Conditions are set to only worsen, with ESCOM preparing protocols for stage 8 and 9 load shedding, it seems, which could see outages lasting for 14 hours a day.
Explosions light up the night sky over Gaza and Israel on Wednesday, as Palestinian militants launched more than 400 rockets at Israel. But many missiles fell short of their targets as they were seemingly intercepted by Israel's missile defenses. Israel says its own barrage of rockets, though, were deadly enough. The Israeli military claimed it hit more than 130 targets overnight. including rocket launching sites run by Gaza's militant groups. It also claimed to kill the chief of Islamic Jihad's rocket launching force, a commander by the name of Ali Ghali. On Wednesday, Egypt began efforts to mediate an end to the fighting after months of escalating violence, according to the Islamic Jihad. Israel said it was examining Egypt's proposal.
Spanish farmers are bracing for another spell of hotter than normal temperatures this week as they deal with the region's worst drought in almost 3 decades. Spain is now requesting emergency funds from the European Union to support farmers and ranchers.
Until yesterday, the opposition was concerned that Muharrem Ince was going to bite into its own support base. And because, Nick, this is going to be perhaps the toughest race in the modern history of Turkey, Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu was pretty much concerned that Ince could be the one who's going to deny him from any chance to win this election. Now we have to wait and see what happens to the supporters of Muharrem Ince. Are they going to give their voices to the opposition, or are they going to migrate to someone like Sinan Ogan? We have to wait and see, but this is something that is definitely going to change the dynamics of this election.
And tech giant Google will now have more AI-powered features in its core search product. Google has now plans to make its AI-powered chatbot widely available. According to the company, the Bard chatbot will be available in 180 countries, including India, which means, like ChatGPT, you can now access Bard to get answers to questions and also seek suggestions on various topics.
Now, according to reports, the fake story claimed the crash killed 9 construction workers in China's Gansu province. It gained more than 15,000 clicks after being published on social media. Soon after the incident, the authorities managed to track the suspect, surnamed Hong. They later arrested the man for spreading false information.
On Saturday, Germany unveiled its biggest military aid package of the war so far. $3 billion worth of armoured vehicles, artillery, anti-aircraft systems and drones. And the EU has pledged that member states will speed up ammunition supplies.
A Russian helicopter and a combat jet have reportedly crashed near the country's border with Ukraine. Unconfirmed reports suggest the helicopter was shot down by a missile, but Russian authorities insist the cause was engine failure.
Adding to Russia's sense of unease that momentum is swinging against them, several Russian aircraft came down in what should be safe territory. As many as 2 military helicopters and 2 jet fighters were destroyed across the Russian border in Bryansk.
It seems the fog of war has left a gap exposed in Poland's air defense. The Polish defense minister has alleged that the army knew about a possible Russian missile coming in, but failed to inform the government. The missile in question may be the same one that was uncovered in a northern Polish forest in April. Polish Defense Minister Mariusz has slammed the army for failing to inform the government of a possible Russian missile headed for the country on the 16th of December in 2022. The defense minister's claims coincide with the remains of a Russian-built Kh-55 missile found in forested areas near the Russo-Polish border. Polish services had reported seeing the object enter their airspace but lost track of it soon after. The defense minister appraised press of an internal inspection that uncovered the failure of duty on part of an operational commander.
This week, NATO moved 12 F-22 fighters to Estonia, accompanied with a collection of A-10s as well, deployed there to quote-unquote deter on NATO's eastern flank.
Earlier on Wednesday, Poland summoned the Russian ambassador over an incident involving a Polish border patrol aircraft and Russian fighter jet this month. Both aircraft are said to have narrowly avoided collision over the Black Sea. The near-miss incident put NATO's air units on high alert.
Japan is in talks with NATO to open a liaison office. Now, you heard that right. NATO's liaison office in Tokyo, and it'll be the first of its kind NATO office in Asia. And this has been confirmed from statements by 2 of Japan's topmost officials. So this is a statement from Yoshimasa Hayashi. He's the foreign minister of Japan. In a recent interview, he said, and I quote him here, We are already in discussions, but no details have been finalized yet. The reason why we are discussing about this is that since the aggression by Russia and Ukraine, the world has in fact become more unstable. The question is, why is there such a need for these kind of discussions that has suddenly arisen? Apparently, it's all down to China. Its muscle flexing in the South China Sea, its military incursions into the Indo-Pacific, and also its heavy-handed attitude towards countries in these regions. Remember, China has been growing its naval and air force presence in areas near Japan. It has also laid claim to the Senkaku Islands, an uninhabited Japanese-controlled chain in East China Sea.
The European Union is considering sanctioning 8 Chinese companies accused of aiding Russia's war in Ukraine. The proposed measures are part of a renewed push to prevent Russia from accessing equipment that could be used in weapons. Some of the firms in question have already been blacklisted by the United States. Beijing says it will retaliate against any EU sanctions.
4 F-A-50s of the Philippines and 8 F-16s of the United States flying over Luzon for about half an hour. The scenario, they need to intercept a number of hostile aircraft. So-called offensive counter-air operation, just one of several exercises for this year's Scope Thunder. Scope Thunder began in the mid-70s but was scrapped following the Pinatubo eruption and subsequent closure of US bases in the early 90s. Thunder's return comes just days after the closing of the largest ever Balikatan drills.
The United States has refused a request to sell Taiwan its most advanced F-35 fighter jets. Taiwan's Air Force Chief of Staff, Cao Jinping, told lawmakers that the U.S. did not provide a reason for the refusal. This comes just days after the U.S. said that it would deliver F-16V fighters to Taiwan 2 years later than originally expected.
But Liz Truss still has hope. She's trying to make a comeback ahead of next year's election. Her strategy? Taiwan. Truss has announced that she will visit the island next week. What for? To show solidarity, she says. But let's be real. Liz Truss is not going to show solidarity. She's going to revive her political career. And what better way than a visit to Taiwan? A former prime minister bravely standing up against China.
In Bangkok, capital of Thailand, the temperature reached 41 degrees Celsius on Sunday in parts of the city, shattering the 40.8 degrees Celsius record in 1983, according to the Thai Meteorological Department on Monday. Temperatures ranging from 40 to 44 degrees Celsius were recorded in many places of the country on the same day. Now, Dhaka experienced the hottest day in 58 years. According to the Met Office, the highest temperature recorded was 40.4 degrees Celsius. In 1965, the temperature in Dhaka had touched 42 degrees Celsius.
The Supreme Court has ordered the release of Imran Khan and even called the arrest a wrong decision by the Rangers.
The public sentiment is firmly anti-establishment. A free and fair election now would be a landslide win for Imran Khan's party. So Rawalpindi has 2 options: end this charade of democracy and take power, or rig the provincial election. As for Imran Khan, they can always fight another day. There are 100 plus cases against him. It's only a question of which one to convict him on.
Former Prime Minister Imran Khan, seen here just moments after a Pakistani court ordered his release on bail. That's according to his lawyers on Friday, who said Khan would be bailed for 2 weeks.
Beijing has blocked an Indian resolution at the United Nations Security Council. What was the resolution about? Putting this man on the global sanctions list. His name is Abdul Rauf Azhar. Let me tell you about him. He is the brother of Jaish-e-Mohammed chief Masood Azhar. He's based in Pakistan, no surprise. He's also implicated in multiple terror attacks like the Indian Airlines hijacking in 1999, the Parliament attack in 2001, and the Pathankot attack in 2016. So India wanted to put this man on the UNSC sanctions list, but China objected. One iron brother came to another's rescue. And this is not the first time. In August last year, the US and India had moved a similar resolution. The target was the same man, Abdul Rauf Masood. Back then, China did the same thing. They put the proposal on hold to help Pakistan. In fact, I have a list for you. In October last year, India tried to sanction 2 terrorists, Hafiz Saeed, chief of Lashkar-e-Toiba, and Shahid Mahmood, another Lashkar leader. Guess who blocked the proposals? China did. In June, India tried to sanction Abdul Rahman Makki. He's Hafiz Saeed's brother-in-law, also mastermind behind 2611. Again, China blocked. In September, India moved another resolution. The target was Sajid Mir, also a Lashkar-e-Toiba leader. Again, China blocked. Do you see the pattern here? China has repeatedly shielded Pakistani terrorists. Ironically, some of them have been convicted by Pakistan themselves.
Michelle Jordan, a Cleveland EMT, had been missing since Saturday, last seen by her family after she went outside to grab something from her car. Her family and authorities searching for days. Then on Friday, the 30-year-old reappeared, limping into a convenience store barefoot with tattered clothes. The chilling moment caught on surveillance video, Jordan using the clerk's phone to call 911.
You'll never believe this. We just got a call from Michelle Jordan. She said she got away from the people that kidnapped her. They tried to burn her alive.
The 2 girls, 14-year-old 8th graders, were walking home from Freedom Middle School, heading east on Hageman Road at about 3:30 the afternoon of April 26th. A security camera at a church on Hageman caught this faraway image of the girls walking when a stranger approached from behind. The girls ran to one of their homes in a panic, frantically trying to enter the code to unlock the door. The victim immediately called her mother at work. This is Suzanne Mendoza.
A man had run up behind her and grabbed her from behind by the breast. She pushed him off. He ran in front of her and grabbed her forcefully by the arm, attempting to pull her away from her friend in the direction where he came from. She hit him and her friend hit him as well, and he lost his grip and they were able to run away from him.
The Mendozas filed a police report. Then they had the girls separately make sketches of the alleged assailant. The drawings are remarkably similar. Perhaps 5'6", ball cap, glasses, goatee. The girls suspected the man had come from a side street, so Suzanne started knocking on doors. One homeowner's Ring camera had snapped a shot of a pickup parked on the street, out of place and just around the same time as the incident. He shared the photo with her and Suzanne posted it on social media. Friends shared it and shared it again.
We received a phone call from a family member saying that one of her social media followers responded to the post that she reposted and said, hey, I just saw that truck in my neighborhood.
Suzanne's husband, Victor, drove to the neighborhood where the truck had been spotted. Lo and behold, there it was at a stoplight with the same unique customizations.
My husband pulled up next to him near Veterans Elementary. He was just kind of circling the neighborhoods, and my husband pulled up next to him to see if he was matching the description that my daughter gave. And as soon as he saw that he was, he called me saying, hey, I found him.
A chase ensued, high speeds, in and out of traffic, all the way from northwest Bakersfield to the southeast, to a car wash on Nile Street, where the man's wife and others were waiting for him. The man's wife declared her husband innocent. Finally, Suzanne stepped forward.
I talked to the wife, like, hey, look, I'm a wife as well. I get it, you're gonna stand by your husband, but I'm also a mother.
Police came, an arrest was made. Timothy Ake Kinsavith, age 23. Bakersfield police booked him on charges of attempted kidnapping and sexual battery. According to Sergeant Robert Pear, he is due in court for criminal arraignment on May 18th. Is there a lesson here? Oh, yes.
Moms, go with your gut. Kids, go with your gut. Be vigilant, be vigilant, be vigilant.